Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonic Lab presentation special. We've got Mitch from Soundtoys here. How you doing, Mitch, over there on the other side of the pond?
I am doing well on this pond side so far.
Excellent. Well, it's a weird world, and hence our remoteness. The reason we're talking to Mitch is you may have seen there's been a whole bunch of activity around the big sales, Soundtoys stuff. A lot of Sonic Talk panelists swear by the Soundtoys plugins. And so we thought we'd have a look at some of what it can do. And Mitch, you've got some examples ready for us, right?
Yeah, I wanted to show some of my favorite tricks for enhancing synthesizers and, toss in a few little tips that people sometimes miss. So we wanted to say, hey, here's, for all you folks that want to get more out of your Soundtoys stuff, here's a few little tricks. It's all stuff that's in the manual, and we know everyone reads our manuals from cover to cover, but sometimes you miss some things, I'm sure. But so that's the deal. I just wanted to give some quick tips and some of my favorite things, and maybe people will get some creativity for the holidays with this stuff.
Absolutely. Before we start, though, I've got to say, kudos to your synth collection. That is impressive. Is that a Matrix Brute and a bunch of Dave Smith stuff there as well? And some Moog, right?
Yeah, I do. And I've got, it's kind of shuffled about right now. There's other stuff in other places because I'm in a pretty small space right now, but crammed full of synth, so you can't go wrong with that.
Absolutely. And rocking the Devo hat on the speaker there. Nice little touch.
And the Newman poster. Let's not forget.
Oh yeah, okay. I missed that one. I'm looking at the screen here, and that's Effect Rack, which is this. So what is this? This is a standard. This is a sort of plugin host that hosts your plugins inside a plugin. That sounds like a real mouthful, right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, it is a standalone thing, and we sell it individually. But it was kind of the Soundtoys dream to take all these components that we built over the years, and Ken had designed this from the very beginning this way. He's a genius, and he wanted to put it all together in multi-effects. I mean, his career came from when he designed the H3000 at Eventide, multi-effects heaven. And he wanted to branch it out into this world, the plugin world, and I think Effect Rack does it very well. So it's kind of been the toy I was waiting for myself, because I love just manipulating things and adding probably way too much. I'm one of those way too much guys, But
so this would just work on a bus or a channel or a send, whatever you want, really, right? Yeah.
Whatever you want, and that's I've got it directly on the tracks for each one of these because I'm kind of creating an individual chain for each synth. And so you want to jump in, and I'll just
let's see. This looks like a rack full of gear, so you could just drag and drop stuff and save presets and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this is one that's fully loaded up, and I'll pull up this one. This one's empty. This is the way it comes up default, and you just pull things in and go. And we'll start off with one thing that a lot of people have asked and seem to be missing is the rack comes with a full set of presets. So they're all like you can load up and swap through, and some of them are big giant racks and some of them are individual plugins like that. And you can create and save your own for full racks. But a lot of people were saying, well, I want to use my preset from Echo Boy that I love so much. Well, that's available right here on this little red button, and it opens up the individual preset menu. So you can store and save and load any of the factory presets, or even your own user presets can all be accessed from the individual modules in the Effect Rack. So apparently that's a little too hidden, but there it is. Now everyone knows. What else? Oh yeah, and I'll go ahead and do one more quick little tip. A lot of people were asking, in particular for the plugin. Let's pull up. I have lots of plugins. Forgive me. Little plate. There we go. Right. A lot of folks were asking about all the presets. Like an Echo Boy come up full mix, and little plate they come up all wet, which because we decided you're mostly going to use that on a bus. But if you've got it on a track and you want to have the mix at partially dry and you're flipping through, well, it goes back. We've had parameter lock in our plugins since version 3, but it's once again hidden because it's a key command. It's on the Mac, it's Control Option click, and it makes the mix red, and now you can shift through.
Ah, that's handy.
Yeah, we did it ages ago, and we didn't put it on the front panel because you can actually lock more than just one parameter. Not all of them lock, but many of them do.
Right, okay.
Anyway, there you go. Another accidentally secret hidden tip.
One thing I was going to ask, so this comes, how many plugins does it come with when you buy the Effects Rack bundle?
Well, the rack comes with all the stuff that's here in what we call our gear closet, I guess. And I don't know what the number is. It's 18. The only things that are missing are a couple of the little plugins, which are mostly duplicated by the other things. Like little microshift's not in there, but microshift is in there.
Right.
The missing ones that people are asking for are little plate is not in there at this point, and little altar boy, our vocal manipulation.
Right, because I was going to ask that you can't take, if you've got that, you can't bring your other Soundtoys plugins into the Effects Rack environment. It's part of the kind of the bundle. I get it's part of the Effects Rack thing. You can't add to it at the moment.
Right, because it really is its own standalone thing, so it's only the stuff that's available in this. Yeah, so and that may change. There's a couple of technical issues, in particular for Little Altar Boy, that is why it's not in there quite yet. Little Plate, I would say that's going to happen before too long, because it just sounds amazing when you add it to the stuff that's in the Effect Rack. So we love putting out a little more amazing stuff.
So what's this chain doing? What's this chain doing at the moment? What's it actually?
I'm going to start with this. These tracks are very, very basic. Forgive me, but I'm going to play them real quick. This is the first. I'm going to bypass that. Start with Filter Freak. I love the sound of this basic bass, and these are all plug-in synths, because I love to kind of beef those up. There's some really, really great ones out there, but these are some nice tricks to enhance them just a little bit further. This is one of my tricks that I've shown several times, but I totally love doing it. I'm going to switch the Filter Freak into high pass. After I'm going to roll it up a little bit, and then I'm going to go into the tweak menu. I'm on dirt for my analog style, so that when I crank up the input,
Almost like an exciter, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah, I'm getting a little drive because I'm only in that high end range there, and I want to push it. I can switch it to crunch if I want more, or shred if I want even more, which it's really kind of fizzy there, but I like sticking with dirt. And then what I'm going to do is turn the mix to all dry and just barely tap that edge in. And this starts giving it a little more of that, to me, that kind of classic analog feel. There's a lot of times, because of the weird gain staging on old synths, that little weird fizz would cut through no matter what you were doing with it. And it really makes the synth kind of jump out of a track better, in my opinion.
And you're sort of using it in parallel by changing the mix level to sort of right down. You're just adding it to the signal, sort of summing it in there, right?
Right. And we've got multiple mixes, because you can use the mix on the front of Filter Freak, and you can use the mix on the Effect Rack. So we'll get into that a little bit later too. But I like just to put a little tiny edge of that on there, and a little bit of mod, just so it's kind of moving. And oftentimes I'll switch it to random so that it's not doing the same movement all the time, which gives it, once again, a little bit of random stuff for me makes things feel more analog.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? The randomness of analog is kind of, what appeals to our pattern recognition brains, because we're not hearing the same thing over and over again. It makes perfect sense.
Right. And it's, it's like the beauty of this, Dave's new Prophet 10 with his vintage knob is like, It's stunning. But that's what's going on is some random elements to, give it a little more life. So, all right. So the next thing we'll do to this is I'm going to drop in actual microshrift here and give it a stereo spread, because microshrift is doing the classic kind of pitch down, pitch up, hard pan left, right, stereo imaging thing. And this is what it sounds like when you just drop it in. Now, the problem with that is it kind of ruins our bottom end a little bit, but this focus knob allows you to roll that off the bottom end.
Oh, just here's microshift the upper frequencies.
Yep, and here's another little tip. If you click on the name, you can see where you are frequency-wise. So if we just want to spread the high end there, high mids, and then I'm going to mix that. So we're just getting a little bit of the spread on the top. Just for a little bit. Most of this stuff is very subtle, but it helps really kind of punch it out in a mix. Yeah, and then I'll drop in a CQ to pump up the bass a little bit. And then I'm going to pump up the highs because, man, the high end on the CQ is really stunning. I was blown away when I heard the original hardware, the Siemens EQ, because it was a broadcast EQ, so it was kind of, the curves were designed to be really sweet on the bottom end and the high end in particular. So, but this just kind of gives a little bit of extra air to what we just created in that stereo image. So we'll listen to that too. So those are the subtle things we can do, obviously, and then we can get nuts. We can toss in something like a primal tap for delays. Actually, I want to do this with Echo Boy Jr. And as you can see, you just drag in whatever you want, and if you want to change the order, you just drag it around.
So these just run one into another, depending on how you've got them stacked. So there's no alternative routings or back panel stuff going on. It's just what you see and what
yet.
Okay.
It's certainly a dream for doing some different kinds of routing. But right now, the reason it's doing this is because we have this nice little recycle knob up here, which is a feedback, and it feeds back through the entire chain of all the plugins, which is kind of cool when you're running them, serial like this, where you can, because when you shift something, it makes a big difference in sound a lot of times because of that. And so I encourage everyone to kind of experiment, move things around, and see, how the sound changes.
So you can build something pretty complex here, and then presumably just save this as a preset and bring it back, next time. Yeah. Next time you want to.
In fact, that's what I've done over here in my Sonic synths. Is I actually created the full preset of what we just did, and that's all saved up, and a couple little extra using Echo Boy as kind of a slap and chorus, because the Space Echo has a mod on it.
Neat.
And I tossed in fiddle.
One thing that did strike me, because I know that lots of people use the drive, all of the distortion and drive stuff, but a lot of your things seems to be Soundtoys stuff seems to be, although there's some nods to existing equipment, it has a sort of original. This is kind of, if we could make the hardware, we'd make one of these, which is nice, rather than this is just a PCM 70 or whatever, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the original goal on some of the early plugins. I mean, obviously, some of these things are somewhat of a direct kind of emulation. Things like Devil-Loc is certainly it's the Shure level lock,
right?
But most of our things,
obscure.
Yeah, it was. We're always looking for things with character and things that kind of had a story behind them that made a difference in a track, or somebody's, like the Level Lock is from Chad Blake and all of his work. And he used that thing, and it was a kind of a junky piece of gear, but it had so much character. And when we got into listening to it, it was a huge surprise, because it was like, wow, this thing's really interesting. And then when we took it apart, we actually ended up separating the two things that it does inside the box that you can't access on a real Level-Loc, which is the distortion and the compression are separate on the plugin, which is very, very cool. And we'll touch on that.
Are these kind of like modeled? They're like, are they component modeled, or are they analytic models? Because I never know what the difference is, or there's some convolution that goes on in some of these as well. Or
no. There's we're not doing a convolution. It's all algorithmic stuff. They're like, we'll use Filter Freak for an example. That was originally started with Ken looking at the Moog filter, the best filter of filters. And kind of starting with there, but then expanded out a little bit. He had so many different types of filters around. We didn't try to model every filter out there, but we tried to take some of the best bits from everything and find one. Whereas something like Echo Boy, which is a relatively popular plugin,
these are names I recognize.
Has tons and tons of different types of emulations built in. And our goal there, oddly enough, at the time, there were lots of different plugins out there for delays, and people were like, why are you going to do a delay? And the main reason we started was because almost everything was modeled, and everything was trying to do delays that were based on things like pedals and stuff. And there was very little stuff out there that had the clean but warm delay sound, and that was our initial reason for going into this project. I mean, we did all the other stuff, the grungy stuff's all in there, and you can do all kinds of things with that, but at the time it was really hard to find one that was like, I'm going to put this on a vocal, I'm going to stick it right up front in the mix, and it's going to sound smooth and wonderful.
Well, that's something that seems to come across on a lot of the Soundtoys stuff, is it has an analog style warmth. There's saturation and drive, and that kind of tape vibe is what a lot of your stuff is about, right?
Oh yeah, and that is the case. We again, going back to Filter Freak, because it was one of the first ones we did. We wanted the plugins to have an analog sound and an analog kind of vibe. So when you looked at it, you would kind of understand it immediately if you were into hardware at all. And when you listen to it, you would hear the same kinds of things. That's why, like, our input and even our output can be driven just like a piece of hardware. So you can get different effects there. When we looked in the tweak menu, you can do shred and pump and change that up to get kind of more of a hardware vibe, because we really wanted it to be beyond just a piece of software and get as close to having a piece of gear as you could, because most of this stuff was really hard to find and really, really expensive to collect.
Yeah, and maintain. Let's forget.
And maintain.
So what's next? Yeah. What's the next process chain, or is there something else to add to this one?
No, let's get rid of that and get into this little 808 beat.
There we go. Decapitator. That's something I recognise. I know a friend of ours, a Sonic Talk panelist, Matt Hodson, he uses that a lot. He's a real fan.
It is probably Echo Boy and Decapitator have to be two of our most popular plugins ever. So, and that's, Decapitator, once again, it was one of those, a distortion? Why are you going to do a distortion? And it was like, well, because once again, we weren't approaching it from a pedal. We were approaching it from mic pre's, because so many mix engineers were telling us, driven mic pre's is like the harmonic dream come true, where you find all this stuff. And I was super skeptical, because I was like, it's just distortion. But over the years, all these people have shown me, like, no, listen to this. When you drive that, you mix this in, it's just on the right end, a teeny little bit of harmonics, and now you can hear that snare drum. And I'm like,
yeah.
You're right. And I'm like, thanks for teaching my ears how to hear, because I didn't know. But but the other thing was, we wanted a distortion that was you could use both ways. And that's what, it's funny how people are divided, because a lot of people were like, I've never turned it past halfway to one. That's all I want. And then there's the the Trent Reznors of the world who are like, yeah, I put 4 of them and I turned everything all the way up. And
so what's this doing? Let's have a listen.
Yeah, let's listen. I'm just going to turn on this whole patch so we can listen to what it's doing. Then we'll break down what's happening. Back off and then on. And so what's going on in here, Mitch? All right, I'm going to go turn off a few things and listen to them one by one. As you can see, you can mute or solo in the rack, which is very cool.
Solo, that's handy.
Just being able to listen to one element of it. Like if we just want to hear what Decapitator is doing to it. And we've got our punish button on, which really drives it hard. And if you want to hear what's going on, we'll mix closer. That's what it's doing.
Wow, yeah.
But we're just adding in that edge. And Filter Freak is doing something that a lot of users might find interesting if they haven't discovered it. I am just kind of enhancing that bottom beat.
Oh, is that the high pass resonant trick?
This is, I'm using a bandpass here, but in the tweak mode, I've got the mod turned almost all the way off on the frequency, cranked up the level mod so it's actually driving it up in volume. And this is what it's...
Right.
So I think a lot of people miss the fact that you can turn the mod off for the different elements, resonance and level. I mean, when it comes up factory, there's no level mod, no resonance mod. It's just frequency mod. But you can do some really interesting tricks. You can basically use Filter Freak as a dynamic EQ. Sorry, I got lost there for a second. But right now, I'm just enhancing that kick drum. If I turn the mod off,
right, okay, it's just gone.
Yeah, that's because I don't have that level happening, but.
And that's giving it extra thump, yeah.
Yeah, a little, and it's thumping on the snares too, so it's like a second kick drum going in there.
Oh, yeah.
And then we drive it, and we can go, I'm going to turn that off for just a second so we can hear Devil-Loc doing its thing all by itself.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and that's what it was so strange because the compression is on this unit. That's one of the reasons we chose it. The compression is, the attack time is dynamic based on the input, because this unit was supposed to be a PA leveler. So like if you were talking into a PA and you turned your head, it was supposed to level that out. It didn't work very well. And they were, yeah, but it makes drums do really cool stuff. Let's listen again. And this is the original. The slow version is actually the compression that.
That's nice.
And it's totally gone there for. And then the distortion is really unique too. I just wanted to put it on fast. So we get a little pop, or a lot of pop, and then mix that in.
Just sort of brings out the transients, right?
Yeah, and we drop in Filter Freak again. Now, Crystallizer is doing something very interesting too, so I'm going to solo it.
That sounds like the classic H9000 or H1000, I can't remember which one it was, the classic Eventide modulated delay,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and oddly enough, guess what this patch is called? Can you see that? Yeah, I made that patch a long time ago based on some great sounds from a live Dolby performance, Thomas Dolby performance, and I was like, that's a fantastic effect.
Now, I've got this is bits for train spotting. Zappa used to use that a lot as well, didn't he? On there were some drums, certainly in around Joe's Garage time. I remember hearing all those kind of spiraling delays and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a sound from the '80s. Once it started popping out, I know Prince used it on tons of stuff too, and so it's a. And I'm stuck in the '80s, obviously, as well. You see all my memorabilia back here, but I love those kinds of sounds. It was just so future, and here we are in the future doing it again. And and I think on the end here, I've just tossed on Echo Boy with a preset called Distressed Flange. Which is kind of interesting. We're getting a little garbled, but now we can. Yeah. But the nice thing is that we can use the main mix on the effect rack. Kind of bring back in the original dry sound across the board.
So that's incredibly complicated, sonically complex sound that you're able to create there. And that, I mean, I suppose for many people might think, well, that's quite pedestrian, I mean, but if you turned the mix up to full and everything, it would be fairly extreme. It's just the fact that you're sort of not using the full mix, right?
Yeah, and I'm not normally a subtle guy in any way. I get called out for it all the time because my effects are over the top, and I'm always putting too much of our stuff on. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the thing is you can back off. And all these mix engineers, I see them and they're doing things really subtly, and I'm like, yeah, see, that's easy. It's easy to say less, but it's so much nicer to go. You get the idea when it's more, I think. At least I do.
Yeah. You don't have to have golden ears to tell it's happening.
Right. And then, then you could back off, or you could go crazy and add more and be even worse than I am. So this is a little DX. Yep.
That's very topical, what with all the new FM stuff coming out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just reviewing the Core Drop 6 at the moment.
Oh, man, that's a cool box. It sounds amazing.
It's really interesting.
So, man, for synth heads, this has been a really, well, apart from this year, which has hurt everyone, it's been a great time for synth. There's some cool stuff going on. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Basic little Rose track, and I've created this track. It's got multiple Echo Boys on it. I'm using 2 Echo Boys, which are kind of panned differently in their tweak menus here. I've got the balance shifted over on this side for that one and to the other side for this one. So I'm sort of tape chorusing and shifting them out to give it a, not quite a dim D kind of thing, but,
right.
but more of a spatial effect necessarily than a chorus. So. It's this super subtle chorus and on that side. And then to really kind of shift it in and give it some dimension, I've put microshift again on it and mixed it in. And it's very heavily detuned, but just on the high end. Then delay from Echo Boy, which is also chorused. I love putting way too much chorus on things. And then a nice subtle phase in the bottom, which oddly enough, most of these things are pretty subtle on their own, but stacked together, it's just a kind of a spatial thing. But I'm going to try to bust through here real quick and get to the next track, because this is my favorite one. This is the more Mitch extremes.
So what? But what with that a CPU? Like, I mean, can you stack a bunch of these up? I mean, they're obviously they're optimized. I mean, but there are a lot of plugins in there, right?
I mean, in the back of the day when they were created, they were pretty heavy because they were doing all this analog stuff. But that was most of them were born 10 years ago ish in that range. So now computers are like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
I was run a ton of them on a laptop. So
yeah,
here is a trick a lot of folks may have missed as well, which is with Filter Freak. In Filter Freak, there's a very special kind of split stereo thing that only happens when you put the mono to stereo version of it on a track, and it allows you to let's play it. Solo this. When you put it on mono to stereo, changing the frequency, does this cool kind of stereo shift. And of course you can turn the mod on and have it do that on its own.
It's like when you have two different filter peaks and you're moving around, you get that kind of that slightly vowely but also widespread.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with that. I was just going to let everybody know the mono to stereo version is the only one that allows you to mess with that. And you have your offset control in the tweak menu to make it do more things. All right, on to the crazy stuff. Oops, shut that down, open this up. All right, so what are we doing to this one? I'm just going to turn this on, and then we'll break it down. One by one. Oops, on. Little grit.
Nice.
I'm using Crystallizer. I think I started... with this Smooth Crystals, which is one of the presets. And I've tweaked it quite a bit to kind of create a little pad behind my synth. Now right now I've got Filter Freak in a kind of a classic high pass, and it's working with that split stereo filter as well outside of the rack. But what I really want to do here is show some rhythm. So I'm going to put this in a low pass. I'm going to shift to rhythm mode.
And that's working off the master clock, presumably, off the session, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. Up in the top section here of the rack, you see we can go free sync or MIDI sync. And the nice thing about that is you can have the MIDI sync on the rack and then choose to take some of the other individual elements out of MIDI sync. If you want to have, like I can, with my LFO is not MIDI synced here, so I can be completely out of sync with my Filter Freak, or I can turn the MIDI switch off and set a totally different tempo if I want.
Right, I got you.
But this is locked in, and I've already got a custom rhythm created in there, as you can hear. So, but you can go in and write your own rhythms very easily and write your own wave shapes. I usually create my little topped off ramp down that's a little shorter than a normal ramp, which is super easy to do. I'll show you how to do that real quick. So we'll go and just select a regular ramp down and go in and grab a point, move the point, create your new shape.
Right.
All right. But yeah, and you can go in and take out nodes, put in a new node.
Okay.
You can change note values. So if you want some little 16ths down there, you can change by option clicking and dragging. You can change the amplitude of the filter per event. Let's hear a little bit more of that. I love the rhythm mode on, and that's on. The cool thing is, I keep saying the cool thing. There's so much cool stuff about it, but you can create those custom rhythms up to 32 bars with all types of events and save them, and they are shared between the rhythm mode plugins. So if you create a rhythm in Filter Freak, you can pull it over into Phase Mistress, and you can pull it over into the Tremolator, which I do that a lot of times, which I'll use the same rhythm for Filter Freak and Tremolator. So I've basically got a VCF and a VCA doing this rhythms together. And let's turn on Primal Tap for some delay. And so now we've kind of destroyed all my basic synth tracks, but that's some tips and tricks from the weird guy, and hopefully there's something fun to do in there for folks. My theory is jump in, have fun. The presets are a great way to kind of get the vibe, because there's a lot more to most of these plugins than they convey on the front panel. So you can kind of flip through the presets. You might go, that's weird, I hate that. Oh, there's the thing. Like Crystallizer is crazy, far out, reverse, granular delay, but it also does some very nice subtle choruses and pitch shift doubling. So it's fun.
Yeah, and I've noticed I've started to hear the real kind of fingerprint of Soundtoys stuff on like quite modern productions, particularly on vocals. I think a lot of American vocal producers seem to use a lot of your stuff to get those kind of just those little extra tricks and corners and contemporary sounds as well. Even though this obviously looks kind of vintage, it's actually been used a lot.
Yeah, I mean it's come in. It's been on vocal production forever, between Echo Boy, Decapitator, and now the CQ is in there. And Little Altar Boy is very, very popular in modern production right now. So we're pleased. It's nice because we built these tools because we're musicians, and we wanted them. And we thought it would be a blast to make music with. And then when we shared them with people and they liked them too, we were pleased.
Yeah, well, as you should be. So I guess if you want to find it, there's various sales going. There's been a big sale recently, and I don't know if there still is, but soundtoys.com is where you get all of this stuff, right?
Yeah, we have things, throughout the year. There's always something going on, the holidays in particular, but we try to keep some semi-regular specials going. It's already priced pretty reasonably when you think about hardware and the equivalents, and even in the software world, we're fairly competitive. So I think it's good. Go find a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I was going to ask, obviously, new M1 Silicon coming out. Are you guys planning on supporting that natively, or is that at top of the list, or is it kind of?
No, we're looking at it already. Of course, we try to stay as up on those things as possible. There's always a curve where you got to, because you can't do much of anything with Apple anymore right away. Because you have to wait until you got it in your hands. Which and then all the work comes from there. But that's the way the world is, and we're definitely going to stay on top of the technologies and keep moving forward. And it's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mitch, thanks so much for talking to us. Happy holidays and all of those things. Hopefully we'll get this out before the holidays. Or if the holidays have just happened, then I hope you had a good holiday. Nice.
I hope everyone has a great holiday, had a great holiday, whatever future past, where time means nothing anymore, right?
Yeah, basically. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Mitch. See you around.
Thank you, sir. See you.